So apparently September is Suicide Prevention Month. Welcome to the Lips and Language podcast. My name is Cola, where we talk about life, love, and language. Remember to subscribe, like, and share. Let's get into today's topic. And I say apparently because when I was struggling or going through it, I never even knew that there was a month for awareness. And it's quite interesting because I had decided that one of the things I wanted to tackle this month was healing. And I had asked different men that I know of one specific question, and it's if they believe that there is a safe space where they can go to heal. Now, I didn't connect the dots that me asking that question at this time also connected to the fact that it's Suicide Prevention Month. But I think there's no better time to talk about it and to release the stigma of it, because so often we get in this mindset that we think that suicide looks a certain way, feels a certain way. We're like, what? There's all these signs, there's all these things that you should know of. And now there are some things people should be aware of, which I'm not going to get into actually. More than anything, what I wanted to do is just tell my own story, because suicide has been something that I had struggled with even before my son passed, mostly because my life was um there was a lot happening in my life. And I think sometimes we try to pretty it up. I think sometimes we try to make it seem a certain way. We try to make it look a certain way. We try to make it feel a certain way. Instead of just like understanding the truth of where it is and where we're at. And I think the thing about loving Jesus and the thing about struggling is that people believe that the two shouldn't coexist. Like, it automatically, when you love Jesus, you no longer struggle, you no longer go through battles, you no longer feel depressed and all these other things. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And excuse my language for those who are going to be like, oh my gosh, she said an shit word. But that's just the matter. That's just what life was. Like, that's what it felt like at the time. And I used to be somebody who cussed heavily, and um, I have gone through different transformations as a person, as a spirit, as a like my spirit has gone through so many different transitions, of happiness and joy to sad and distraction and devastation. And before my son passed, there was a lot that had happened. I had been sexually assaulted 4 times. I had been molested by a family member. I had just gone through so many different things, and it's like, because I am the daughter of a pastor, because I grew up in church, there's all these expectations that life would look a certain way, and it didn't. And there were so many times when I was younger, I just remember wanting to die. I remember just feeling completely dead and numb inside and not knowing what to do with that feeling, and just wanting God to take me away, but also being taught in church that it's a sin. And so I'm like, well, I'm not trying to go to hell. I'm not doing all this to then end up in hell. But at the same time, it's not getting better. It didn't feel any better. It didn't feel like anything was moving in the right direction. And it really felt like one thing on top of the other. I talked about earlier this week about dancing through the pain. And at the time that I made that video, I was legit in pain. My body had really just been going left for the last few days. And I thought about the importance of finding joy in the most difficult times. Finding joy when, at the time, I was like, I could barely even sleep through the night because I had so much pain. And I thought of Job and all the pain that he was going through when he was like even cursing the day he was born. And I think about how often we get into this space, and it's so easy to invite those emotions and to take comfort in those things that say, well, you should just give up. Life is not going the way you planned. Life is not going to get any better. This is just what it is. You've been going through this for a really long time. And when the Bible talks about long suffering, I think we have to understand what that means. We look at it like, oh, cute, patience, long suffering. But when you actually understand what that means and you actually live out a life that is long suffering, that word starts to take on a new form. And so it comes to a moment that you're just like, wow, I don't know how to get through this. And I definitely don't know how to get through this without Jesus. That's the thing. For me, like, people don't understand that this thing is not just me just bowing down to a deity. It's that every breath that I take, every air that I take in my lungs is a reminder that I'm still here and that life could have been so different. And then for some other people, life is different. There's people who are no longer on this earth because they have chosen that death would be more peaceful than living. And the thing about life is, if you end it too soon, if you end it on your own terms, you never know what was right around the corner. You never know what has the ability of changing. And even when it feels like it's a long time coming, even when it feels like the dark days are just constant and it's pressing and it's weighty, we miss the opportunity for other people to pour into us. We miss the opportunity for us to overcome it and then turn around and pour into others who feel that pain, who feel that suffering, who don't know what it's like. In my darkest moments, I talk about this all the time. I played music. I played a lot of music. My background is in classical piano, and I played a lot of music, gospel music specifically. But I played a lot of different styles within the Christian genre that really gave me a feeling of like, okay, I can hold on a little bit longer. Okay, I can hold on a little bit longer. And little by little, getting more sleep, making sure that I'm not overworking myself, making sure that I'm not overrunning. Because a huge part of depression and anxiety is also not being able to sleep and having like over like thoughts that just keep running over and over, right? And I had to start looking at my nutrition. I had to start looking at my health in a whole, not just this aspect of the pain, but everything overall. What parts were connecting and what parts were disconnecting? What parts could I improve upon? And what parts were probably aiding to how I felt, right? Like when we get into a space where all we got to do is hustle, all we got to do is make money, and we're really depending on self rather than God, we get into this space where we're not built to handle all this stress. We're not built to just live our lives working. We're not built to only do this one thing. We're built to do many different things. We're multifaceted because we are made in the image of God. And so when it comes to this idea of um desperation and disaster and really feeling just taken over by thoughts, right? We really have to capture them. We really have to write it down and figure out what part of it is true and what part of it is a lie. Could life be better? Yes, that is the truth. Could life be worse? Yes, that's also the truth. The pain that I feel, will it ever go away? Yes. Even if it doesn't feel like it, even if it feels like there was there was one I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again. There was one time when I had a mounting debt. I had so much debt over my head, and everything was due like around Christmas time. And Christmas is my son's favorite holiday, and so he wasn't here. And it really felt like life was going to end if I didn't pay these bills. If I didn't pay these creditors, if I didn't answer to these people, it felt like it was the end of the world. And it felt like suicide was better. It felt like that was a better choice because I was like, if I'm dead, I can't pay. Like, how are they going to get money from me if I'm dead, right? And that felt like the better choice. But here's what happened. Christmas passed and nobody got any money. I didn't have it to give, and I didn't give it. And it was cool. All the people who threatened, if you don't pay by this date, if you don't do by this date, such and such is gonna happen. Nothing really happened, to be honest. They held this like pressure over my head, and then I put more pressure on myself to do it. But at the end of the day, nothing happened. And I thought back and I'm like, what if I actually committed suicide? What if I actually took my life? Thinking that I wouldn't have to pay these bills. A, I would have left other people behind, but B, nothing happened. And it really wasn't even as big as it originally felt. It started to feel a lot smaller. And that's not to minimize anybody who's going through anything. What I always say is feel what you're going through. Make sure that you don't minimize it. Like, we get into a state, I said earlier, can things always be worse? Yes. But sometimes we get into a state where whatever happens, we're like, I know there's people worse off than I am, so I should just need to be grateful. That gives us a false feeling, a false sense of like, empathy towards ourselves. Like God is a Jesus was a very compassionate man. And what I find often is that Jesus had more compassion on us than we have on ourselves. We're really out here like, if it don't happen a specific way, we're like, wow, life is mush. Life is just like it that's what it is, right? And we really hype ourselves up to be like, well, at least I'm not bad. At least I'm not as bad as this. At least it's not as bad as that. The Bible talks about jealousy and envy, and it's almost in a way. Think of it like this: we all, sometimes people envy wanting to have better, right? But like in a way, it's almost like we're envying people who have it worse. We're just like, well, at least it's not that, so let me be grateful. That's not where gratitude comes out of. It's not the gratitude is not out of, well, at least my life is not worse. Our gratitude comes out of a space of like, hey, God gave me this life to live, and I'm making the most of it in the best way that I can. It doesn't matter about who's worse. It doesn't matter about who's better. It's being content right where we are at. And I think that's the issue with comparing ourselves to people who are worse, is that we're actually doing ourselves a disservice. We think it's noble, we think it's humble, and it's not in any way, shape, or form. It is just setting ourselves up to ignore how we feel, to ignore our own our own emotions. And once we start ignoring our own emotions, what we do is we let people know that it's okay that they start ignoring our emotions. And then one day we find ourselves lashing out at someone who said the smallest thing, but we've given them permission because we ourselves don't even take care of our own feelings, take care of our own emotions. And so I really wanted to talk about our health, mental health, but not just our mental health, the foods that we eat, the nutrition, how the sleep that we get, how it all comes together, um, how it's all used for a purpose. And we need to be able to find and have safe spaces where we can discuss the things that are bothering us. That is not just therapy. Therapy, like I said, therapy is great, but there's other ways, other than talking. There's creative ways. There's ways that we can journal. There's ways that we can write songs. There's so many other ways that we can find a safe space or create a safe space for us to write down our emotions, to keep things not bottled in, because the more it stays inside of us, the more harm we do, the more we're not giving ourselves a fighting chance in this life, because thoughts are going to come, like disaster can come. Most times, we pray that things don't come to us, but what happens when it does? Like Job did everything, and things still hit him. What happened when it did? He fell apart. We have to be ready. I mean, one thing I love that Job said is, how can I accept the good and not the bad? And I'm not saying we need to start waiting for the bad to happen and like being negative, but just understand that if it does, we're prepared, so that we're not taken out mentally, that we're not thrown off guard, but we're really focused on, okay, you know what, this is what happened, this is the process, this is what I'm going to go through to make sure that I'm not getting stuck with it, I'm healing from it, and this is how I'm going to move on. And if we need to, we put the right community around us, we put the right people around us, so they also know how to support us. I talk about having a self-care plan, the importance of a self-care plan for ourselves, especially if you're somebody who deals with mental health heavily. You really need to have a self-care plan. Who are the people that you call? What are the things that you notice happens around the time when you're about to have an episode? Can you see an episode coming from a mile away, or does all these episodes of sadness and stuff hit you out of nowhere? Sometimes we can be self if we're in tune to our bodies and our feelings and how things are, we can feel and know when an attack is going to come. And when we feel and know an attack is coming, then there's things that we need to put around it. Is it that we need to spend longer time sleeping? Is it that we need to spend more time outdoors? Is it that we need to spend more time watching movies? These are all important things, and Jesus cares about the small things as well as the big things. So I asked the question. I asked it to men specifically, because I did a podcast on this, but like men and their mental health, I feel like men suffer a lot not having. I feel like they're so heavily mocked for emotions and for like sharing their feelings. And so I really wanted to dive into what that looks like for men, so that we as women can get a better understanding. This is what men think, this is what they need, so we can better support the people in our community. And so you'll start to see me post up a few of them here and there, but I'm actually going to link one in this video and we're going to watch it now.
Hey, good evening. So, the question is, do I think that men have a safe space to heal? Um, I want to say it depends, because we're men, we're supposed to be strong and mighty, and we have the pressure of the whole world on our shoulders, and we're supposed to carry it as such from work, family, you know what I mean? Whatever the case may be, marriage. We got all these different things going on, and we don't have time to cry. We don't have time to have pity, even though life just, it gets crazy and it beats us down. And the women that we have in our lives, they may love us, but a lot of times they expect us to be that strong thing, holding everything up. But then you do have those that have a village, and I think that's very important. I know for the church that I'm a part of, it's called Made Men. It's a group of guys, man. We all get together and we just speak about life, period. Things that are going on, again, with work, family, having to deal with all these different pressures. And I think that's very important. I think it's therapeutic, to have guys, other men, coming together, help one another out. We're able to get everything off our chest with how we're feeling about a certain aspect of life that we're dealing with at the time. And we have people who have gone through that, or going through it just like we are, at the same time, and we're able to have great advice. We're able to talk it over. We're able to just get letting off steam, you know what I mean? And I think that's very, very important. But for the most part, men don't really have that. I think it's a luxury, to be honest. If you have anything like that. But again, you do have those marriages where we can go to our women and we can, get certain things off our chest. Something's hurting us. Something is weighing us down. It can become our safe space, so to speak. And God is definitely always a safe space. But as it relates to just the people in our lives, the people that are around us, it's hard. It gets hard. Like I said, not impossible, but it gets hard. And that's why I said it depends. It depends. It depends on who you're with. It depends on the people that's around you. It depends on what kind of people they are. It depends on what kind of marriage you have. It depends on the woman that you are building a life with. It just depends, and it varies from person to person, from man to man. So, yeah.
Love that explanation, right? And so, yeah, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to safe space, it varies for people, and that we're not all the same. We're not all created the same, but we're equally loved. And love is one of the most powerful things. I always talk about love, the importance of love, loving ourselves, loving each other, loving God, loving Jesus, making sure that we live a well-balanced life of love. Like, what's the point of going through life without love, honestly? And so I'm going to leave it there for now. We're going to talk about this more throughout this month, about just the dangers and the issues with suicide, and just assuming, like everyone says, check on your strong friend. It's not just your strong friend, because how do you know who your strong friend is? Like, is your strong friend the one who never cries, who never does? Like, there's so many different versions of what a strong friend could look like. It's not just check on your strong friend, it's check on people. Have your heart and mind open to people in general, because it's people who need help. And it doesn't have to be your friend. It could be your neighbor. It could be somebody you see on the street. It could be so many different people. We are our brother's keeper. We are here for one another. And so we have to be very mindful, not just of the things that we say, the things that we do, but also how it affects people. Think before we speak. That is like the most the biggest, best wisdom that I love is thinking before I speak about certain things. And so I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Y'all like, comment, subscribe. I don't typically say that, but as I grow this, I really want it to be something phenomenal. I have so many different perspectives on so many different things that God has taught me personally. And everything I talk about is things that I've walked through. I wouldn't talk about suicide if I haven't walked through it. Now, I haven't actually physically attempted, but that doesn't mean that I don't understand the feelings. I don't understand the thoughts behind it, and I don't understand the movement behind it. A lot of the reasons why I didn't attempt it physically is because I thought about my son, and I thought about other people, and because Jesus also intervened every single time. Every time I thought about it, before I even get a chance to go do it, he has somebody call and check up on me. And so I haven't been in a position to do it, but that doesn't mean that the thoughts weren't there. That doesn't mean that it's not something that I don't understand enough to talk about, because there's a lot of people who haven't done it, but the thought has come, and we need to talk about that too, because often we brush it off, or we misdiagnose it. For example, one time I was in Jamaica with my family, and I was standing in the water, and I just kept walking further and further out. I was looking at how beautiful the sun is, how beautiful the sky is. I love water, and I'm like, oh man, it would be so nice just to lay down here. And I walked further and further out into the water. And I was just staring at it, and I was just enjoying the water, and I was just so peaceful and so calm. And my sister was just like, "Hey, are you okay?" And when I got back, I went to go see my therapist at the time. I was in therapy, and I had told her of what happened, and I'm like, I didn't connect the dots to think that that was a moment of me actually thinking about suicide. I was just out in the water. It would have just been so peaceful. And understanding that certain things that we don't think looks like suicide is definitely in that direction, and we have to be mindful of it because it can sneak up on us. So I love you lots, and check out the outro video.